There is a persistent rumor that a lost civilization, a forgotten kingdom that survived for 1,000 years, lies buried exactly 1,000 kilometers beneath modern Europe. Textbooks outline a neat, linear sequence for European history. Roman legions build the roads, Frankish kings consolidate the power, and the Holy Roman Empire eventually draws the official borders. But the ground keeps yielding artifacts that reject that neat timeline. Recently, metal detectorists exploring a remote Polish forest unearthed a pristine 1,000-year-old sword from the reign of King Boleslaw. It was buried just 30 centimeters deep, sitting completely isolated in the dirt, miles from any known medieval castle or historical battlefield. Similar anomalies are appearing across the continent. Genetic testing in medieval Polish cemeteries is suddenly revealing deep Viking ancestry where there shouldn't be any. Ancient chronicles make passing references to sprawling, heretical realms that thrived for centuries before vanishing entirely from the map. These scattered historical fragments have fueled the internet rumor of a massive, deliberately suppressed, forgotten kingdom. To find out what is actually going on, we have to split this claim into two specific parts: the myth of a continuous 1,000-year kingdom and the physical claim of a landmass buried directly under Europe. Answering this requires digging past the official surface layer of the historical record and drilling directly through the Earth's crust itself. The historical record does not hide a single monolithic empire. Instead, it conceals multiple regional powers that ruled for centuries before being actively overwritten by conquering armies. Take the Kingdom of Lechia. According to official history, the Polish state emerged in 966 AD with its baptism into Christianity. Yet earlier chronicles and archaeological finds point to a complex, indigenous pre-Christian society that held off Greek, Roman, and Frankish expansion long before the official timeline begins. Further south, the Illyrians controlled the Western Balkans. They operated a sophisticated maritime network that mined silver, traded across the Mediterranean, and built high-altitude stone fortresses for a millennium until King Gentius made a doomed final stand against the Roman legions. Or consider Occitania in what is now southern France. For hundreds of years, this region fostered a fiercely independent, tolerant culture built around the dualist Cathar faith. In the 13th century, the Pope launched the Albigensian Crusade. This military campaign systematically burned Cathar strongholds and annexed the territory into the French crown. These distinct cultures suffered identical fates, absorbed by expanding empires, their records burned, and their identities rebranded. This localized historical amnesia feeds the modern myth of one unified, forgotten kingdom. That accounts for the 1,000 years of erased history. But where does the idea of a kingdom buried 1,000 kilometers underground come from? That detail belongs strictly to geology. Researchers at Utrecht University recently mapped the Earth's mantle using seismic tomography. This is a technique that measures the speed of earthquake waves to create a 3D scan of the rock deep beneath our feet. This vintage map shows the Mediterranean and southern Europe as we know it today. But if we roll the clock back 240 million years, the geography is unrecognizable. A chunk of continental crust the size of Greenland, which scientists call Greater Adria, broke off from the northern edge of North Africa. For millions of years, Greater Adria drifted north. It was a low-lying, tropical landmass covered in shallow, warm seas, slowly accumulating thick layers of marine limestone. Then, roughly 140 million years ago, it hit the southern edge of the Eurasian plate. The impact shattered Greater Adria's 100-kilometer-thick crust. Because continental crust is heavy, the vast majority of Greater Adria was forced downward into the Earth's mantle in a process known as subduction. Those massive slabs of rock are still descending today, sitting exactly 1,000 kilometers beneath modern Europe. But the top sedimentary layers were too light to sink. Like a rug being pushed against a wall, they were scraped off the descending continent and crumpled up onto the European margin. The proof of this collision is sitting right at the surface. If you climb to the freezing summits of the Alps, the Apennines, or the Balkans, the rock is packed with the fossils of tropical marine organisms. The lost continent is not a myth. It is a literal physical entity, and its wreckage forms the actual geographical foundation of the Mediterranean today. The viral legend of the Forgotten Kingdom that existed for 1,000 years under Europe is actually a brilliant conceptual blend of two entirely real phenomena. Greater Adria provides the literal physical bedrock of southern Europe, while the suppressed histories of Lechia, Occitania, and Illyria provide the cultural bedrock. Both the continent and these civilizations met the exact same fate. They were crushed and shattered by massive, unstoppable forces, one tectonic, the other political. The heaviest elements were buried deeply, and the surface layers were entirely rewritten. Yet fragments survive the pressure. A medieval sword sits abandoned in the Polish dirt. The lyrics of an Occitan troubadour endure in scattered historical texts. A tropical seashell rests frozen at the peak of an alpine mountain. History and geology are dynamic processes of recycling. The past is never truly gone or fully erased. Europe's forgotten kingdoms are still there, provided you know exactly how deep to dig.